So we talked about the endocrine glands and what they do, but we just talked about how they diffuse through the bloodstream and how they go to these target tissues. But let's talk about what really does this. So if we were to dissect the brain, we just sort of hinted at this one in 201. There's this thing called the hypothalamus and pituitary gland. And it's held together with this little tiny area called the infundibulum. So we have the hypothalamus, the pituitary glands, and the infundibulum is the space in between them. Now, what the pituitary gland does, it's divided to anterior and posterior segments. And each one of those go ahead and control different hormones and release different hormones. So what we're going to have to do is, you'll probably see that I've given you a chart in lecture. You're going to go ahead and name all of the hormones, and are they produced from the posterior or anterior pituitary gland. So the posterior pituitary gland is neural tissue that releases these neurohormones received from the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is going to go ahead and send a message, and the message is going to come down the posterior pituitary gland to release certain hormones. This side only releases 2, maybe 3 that we'll talk about this semester. The anterior one is going to be doing more. The anterior pituitary gland is actually a glandal tissue, and it secretes 8 hormones. And the reason why we do that is, can you see how this one's connected? And you'll see in better pictures coming up, there's nerves that actually can go from here to here. Where here, there's going to be a chemical message that has to come down, touch this, tell it which hormones to release, and then these guys are going to release hormones. The posterior, remember that's the one that's connected with nerves, they're going to release 2 different types of hormones that we're going to talk about this semester, and maybe a third one later. Oxytocin, that causes the ureter, the contractions during childbirths, and most receptors in the uterus are going to be for pregnancy. It helps with stretching. It also helps with milk release. It also helps with any bonding, love bonding, if you love food, anything. And then ADH, antidiuretic hormone, it's going to inhibit urine production. So if your body is low on water, it's going to stop urine production. It's also going to be helpful for doing blood pressure, which we'll talk about soon. And basically, it does this thing called osmoreceptors. And now you could probably break that word down and tell me what it does, but osmo sounds like osmosis, and receptors are receptors. And basically, they stop solute concentration, or they control solute concentration. And solutes are also going to control water level. So salt and water sort of connect together. When blood solute is too concentrated, ADH is released and triggers the kidneys to retain water, which makes sense, right? If there's too much of solute in it, the way we can dilute it is by keeping water and sort of decreasing that solute concentration. It also triggered by low blood pressure. If your blood pressure is too low, we want to add water to it, and that's going to get our blood pressure a little high. Nicotine and morphine also sometimes affect blood pressure, so it tricks our body into thinking it's ADH. Alcohol also inhibits ADH. So when you are hungover, one of the reasons you're so hungover and it gives you issues is because you're dehydrated. Because basically what's happening is you're not saving water, you're releasing it, and your body's super desperate for water. That's where those headaches come from. So oxytocin is going to be used for labor. We've also figured out that people that don't make love bonding are usually linked to psychopaths. They have psychopathic behavior. Turns out that people that have major issues, they don't make any of this. So when you kill somebody or you do something horrible, you don't feel bad about it. That's because you're not making oxytocin. If you make too much of it, you could become a narcissist and love yourself a lot and think you're awesome. So usually this is just a hormonal imbalance. The anterior pituitary gland, let's talk about that in another video.